Itachi Uchiha and Minato Namikaze. The narrative milestones for Naruto and Sasuke being better than the main duo at quite literally everything for a majority of the story. Today we'll be swapping their positions in the story of Naruto and seeing if they'd be able to do as well as the other in their respective fights. We'll keep score as always. With that being said, make sure to like and subscribe if you're new here, and let's get into the video. Now, while we're on the topic of hypothetical scenarios that really expand our imagination and offer us limitless enjoyment, I want to talk about something truly special in this regard. That being the most popping mobile game of the season, coming to you straight from today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends, the RPG played by over 80 million players across the globe. Set in the realm of Teleria, you are one of many long-dead Telerian warriors, resurrected along with players from across the globe with over 650 completely unique champions to collect from different factions with billions of ways to customize and build your champions. My top 3 favorite looking champions would have to be Warrim, the Frost King. His icy design is ridiculously cool to me, and I love how they incorporate ice into his frame, making it dynamic and elemental, which is really neat. Calvinex, who looks like an undead paladin glowing using forbidden magic, whose kit is heavily focused on laying out poisons and boosting his damage from his poisons. Lastly would be Fortis, who quite frankly looks like if Cthulhu had a physical form and was knighted, which is just so much more awesome than it needs to be. And this month, Raid's got a huge update with a ton of new features, including a brand new dungeon and the introduction of Artifact Ascension. Battle through the Sand Devil's Necropolis and earn the precious oil needed to take your artifacts to the next level. There are a bunch of new champions being added to the mix too, including some really cool holiday champions. For those who are really looking to get into the festive spirit, the Bastion's even been decorated in-game to look all wintry too. Really cool. And if you haven't started playing Raid yet, which you should be, Raid's got something extra special happening now. They've just released a legendary champion based off MMA and pro wrestling legend Ronda Rousey. Yes, Ronda Rousey you can get for free right now, whether you're a new or long-time player, just by logging into Raid. All you got to do is log in and play Raid for 7 days between now and February 20th, and Ronda's yours. To celebrate Ronda's arrival to Raid, you can use the special promo code RAIDRONDA, available to all users new and old, to get a bunch of helpful stuff. Click the link in the description or scan my QR code here on screen. You'll get unique bonuses worth $30. We're talking a free epic champion, tarot, 200k worth of silver, 1 energy refill and 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard so you can summon awesome champions as soon as you get into the game. All this treasure will be waiting for you right here on the map. Available for 30 days for new players only, so definitely get into this while you can, guys. And thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring the video. Now, for the first round, we'll have Itachi versus the Nine Tails in Minato's position on top of the Hokage statue. The clear conditions being for Itachi to defend the village from the Nine Tails. Now, before we go any further with this video, I'm gonna have to kind of discuss for just a second Itachi's state, since, you know, it's always up for debate. It matters, obviously. I'll be giving Itachi all his Edo Tensei feats, with him progressively declining in stamina and sight. So he'll be able to perform and he'll gain access to those feats, but he obviously won't be able to maintain the Susanoo for nearly as long. He'll also be fighting a lot different, which I will factor into this video. So that's kind of where I'm placing Itachi for this whole discussion. To start the scenario off, Itachi will be starting on Minato's Hokage head that he was on, and quite frankly, there's only 2 actual feasible ways he can instantly deal with the Nine Tails before the Nine Tails proceeds to shoot a giant Bijudama directly at him, nuking him in the village. The first option for Itachi is to forcibly override Obito's control over the Kyuubi with his own Mangekyo, which we've actually never seen any evidence or like a showing of 2 Genjutsu users struggling to control any beast, let alone a tailed beast. We've only seen the Nine Tails being separated from its user via Minato's contract seal and Hashirama's like sealing wood style, which, while debatable, I think is unlikely, as it's just too hypothetical, and I feel like if it could have been done in the series, it would have. The second and more plausible option for Itachi is to light the Nine Tails up with the Matarasu before he shoots the Bijudama, shown to be effective against giant Biju like Bee. Now, the reason this works in theory is due to how the Amaterasu is effective against all tail beasts. The only times it isn't aren't indicative of how this would go. Someone's gonna make a case that the Nine Tails could detach the flames via his chakra like Naruto did in the final fight, or how the Ten Tails removed a part of itself that was on fire. But the first scenario was done via extreme chakra control via Jinchuriki, The Ninetales showing no semblance of this ability, so it does not seem likely. And the second is exclusive to the Ten-Tails, as we've seen no other Bijou replicate anything remotely close, being able to morph their bodies in such a fluid manner and just take off pieces of themselves, like Suigetsu's hydrification. We've never seen anything like that. And the Ten-Tails was still affected by the attack, and it was getting burned, so the Amaterasu itself was actually able to burn the Ten-Tails hide. So it should also be able to burn the Ninetales. Really isn't anything to say otherwise. Ten-Tails hide versus Ninetales hide. Pretty self-explanatory stuff. Now, the bigger question is if Itachi can actually fire off the Amaterasu before the Tailed Beast Bomb is shot at him, which I think is also debatable, as even Killer Bee is shown in his fight to be able to block the Amaterasu before it hits. The Amaterasu actually requiring a decent bit of charge-up time to fire off. In which case, right, if the Ninetales, for whatever reason, is faster with its Tailed Beast Bomb than the Amaterasu, then not only is Itachi just going to lose, but Itachi's vision is going to be obscured by the giant ball, so he won't even be able to hit his mark. There's also a chance that Obito will just force the Ninetales while burning to shoot the ball anyway, as even when the Ninetales had Gamabunta dropped on him, he was still charging his Tailed Beast Bomb at Hiruzen. So it's entirely possible that even though the Amaterasu would be affecting him, Obito would just force him to continuously fire the Tailed Beast Bomb. So honestly, taking into account the fact that there is startup time for the Amaterasu and the whole issue and semantics with the Ninetales, with all this in mind, I can't really give Itachi a confident clear in this round. Even if he himself, via Susanoo, could somehow survive the Ninetales Beast Bomb, the village wouldn't. The area effect would be way too much. So, yeah, Itachi does not clear round 1. Next up is Minato versus Orochimaru. Now, to be honest, this fight is just the biggest wash. Even if I argued Orochimaru was able to wrap Minato with the snake and a sneak attack like Itachi did, which is how the fight would start. The win conditions for this fight being for Minato to either defeat or force Orochimaru into a retreat. Minato would just teleport behind him or wherever, it doesn't really matter. He could flick a kunai out, and he would proceed to bully Orochimaru like a Storm 4 ultimate. Itachi, with just his base Sharingan, made Orochimaru look like an absolute child and convinced him of a different approach to the Sharingan altogether. Even after collecting jutsu for years, he still thought Itachi was far beyond his grasp, to the point where he just had to go for Sasuke. I believe the fact that even base Minato is still relevant in the war, whether that be in his fight against Madara or how he's shown to be on par with War Art Kakashi per se, should just speak to his capabilities. I don't think that anybody's really going to sit here and try and defend Orochimaru versus Minato. It just doesn't seem possible. Minato would just teleport around, slashing Orochimaru until he forced Orochimaru to retreat, or at his absolute worst, right, would just Reaper Death Seal Orochimaru. And that's a drop. The fight would never get to that point. So Minato should clear pretty easily. For round 2, we have Itachi versus Yellow Mask. Is that Yellow Mask? What is Obito Yellow Mask? Huh, I guess it is. Yeah, Yellow Mask Obito. So this will be Itachi in Minato's place in the forest, and his objective would be to force Obito into a retreat. Now, I'll say this. I didn't combine this in the Ninetales scenario, as Itachi blatantly loses that, as even if he prevents the Ninetales Beast Bomb, Obito's just gonna Kamui him, and Itachi has no defense for it. Even if he reacts to it and phases through him, the fact that he hasn't seen Obito's abilities or anything like that is gonna make it so he's gonna lose at that point. So I'm being a little bit generous to Itachi, to be clear here. Itachi's objective is to strictly force Obito into a retreat, as damaging Obito would cause him to flee the battlefield, and Minato knows how Obito isn't able to control the Ninetales for a prolonged period of time, so this fight wouldn't last that long regardless. Now, I'll start by saying this fight isn't really if Itachi can defeat Obito, it's more so if Itachi can in any shape or form damage Obito to the point he deems the fight to be threatening to his life, making him rethink his plan and retreat. I believe Itachi would be capable of this. On a surface level, Itachi is compared in his novelization and in the canon series to a more developed Obito, as even Obito admits in this fight he was letting his guard down in the fight with Minato and overzealously attempting to achieve by himself what he could have had other individuals do for him, i.e. the Akatsuki. So on top of being much more of a rival and very threatening to a more developed Obito, whether that be intellectually or via his abilities, I believe he'd approach the fight very cautiously in the same way Minato did to gauge Obito's power. So back to the canon fight, Obito runs at Itachi with the chains. Itachi does have a couple of options, either going to A, attempt to place Obito in a genjutsu. He might try and feel Obito out with his visual prowess. Option B is a lot more likely in my eyes, where Itachi would lead with the exploding clone, both with the objective of deducing Obito's abilities and damaging him. I don't even believe Itachi would try and taijutsu Obito without direct confirmation of what he can do, as he does not have the luxury of being able to dart around the battlefield if things turn worse for wear like Minato. It's actually somewhat possible that when Obito does materialize at any point in the fight, whether it's a grab Itachi, a Genjutsu variant, or a clone, Itachi will just blatantly Amaterasu him. Evidence of this being when Obito goes to show Sasuke Sharingan, and we all know the deal with Kamui, how Obito can even do it unconsciously at times. Even with this base Sharingan out, Itachi's trap just directly hits Obito. We know it's his Amaterasu, as his Mangekyo pattern is on Sasuke's eye. This being an Obito who is being far more careful around Itachi and his abilities with knowledge of his technique. So imagine how this version of Obito, who's being much more reckless and engaging much more directly, would fare against an opponent he has zero knowledge of, along with being on a very self-imposed timer via controlling the Nine Tails, which is also draining his chakra supply down throughout the fight with Minato. This also isn't getting into the Susanoo variants, which are its own discussion entirely, but with all this in mind, it should just be within the realm of acceptance that Itachi should be able to tag this version of Obito, or at least show him that he's threatening enough to where Obito does get forced into a retreat. And even if you want to like keep this conversation like strictly like feats versus feats, Itachi can, react to the KCM Naruto. KCM Naruto at that point in the war being very comparable to Minato. That was a big comparison at that point in the war arc. So these speeds are not inconsistent for Itachi in any way. It's just more so how you would argue this fight would go. But Itachi should clear this round and force Obito into a retreat, as this Obito is a lot less developed, a lot more reckless, and he's controlling the Nine Tails at the same time. So he's actually weighing himself down in this fight. For anyone upset, I basically just said Itachi just beats like a nerfed Obito who's like 14. So comment. Next up, we have Minato as an Edo Tensei. I want to clarify too, any matchup where Itachi was an Edo Tensei, I'm going to grant Minato Edo Tensei as well for the sake of fairness in the video. Alongside Naruto and Bee against Edo Nagato. Now, Minato will essentially be taking the place of Itachi when he joins the fight and turns over to Naruto's side. I don't believe Minato as an Edo would just be able to absolutely wipe this Naruto and Bee, especially if Bee at earlier stages, much earlier stages in his career, is still able to like be on par with Minato, with Naruto being compared to the Yellow Flash over and over, whether that be him outspeeding the Raikage or via Bee's own assessment. So these two are just very comparable to Minato at this point in the series. Now, the problem right off rip is that Minato has no instant answers for Nagato summons like Itachi did with Amaterasu, which is a problem, but not really, just due to the fact that the minute Minato got freed, he's just gonna like teleport over to Nagato, and he's either gonna like hit him with the kunai, start shredding him up, or just plunge a Rasengan into Nagato the minute he got free. Now, I will say a lot of people sleep on Nagato, even in gray-haired. Like, some people will say gray-haired Nagato isn't immobile by any means, which he does dash behind Bee after hiding in his chameleon and hitting him with an almighty push. And he dodges like the fist Bee puts in the ground. At least in the anime interpretation, in the manga, you can make me say like Bee uses it to like propel himself forward or like stop his momentum or anything like that. Debatable, but I'm just, take it as you will. I think the issue is though, is that Minato's not going to let Nagato sit on the ground and regenerate like Itachi did with the Amaterasu. Itachi was letting the Amaterasu go to work on Nagato while he gave an explanation to Naruto and Bee over like what had just happened. And, that took place over a period of time while Itachi gave exposition on how he's freed. So Minato would offer Nagato none of that and seal him much faster with his vast arsenal of sealing ninjutsu. Minato should just have no issues just blatantly slicing up this version of Nagato and tearing apart with the kunai, as Itachi's Amaterasu was able to hit Nagato faster than Nagato's Edo Tensei. Automatic counter could activate with Minato being superior to Ai, who can just blatantly dodge Amaterasu. So there really shouldn't just be any reason that Minato can't just start clapping up this version of Nagato. I actually don't see Nagato getting past this point in the fight. I don't see him. I think Minato just ends it here. But even if he did, right? Let's say the same events play out. Nagato hides in his chameleon and Almighty pushes Bee, absorbing his chakra, catching Naruto and Bee in a hold. Minato would arrive not only earlier than Itachi to break the two from the hold. I have no doubt that Minato could also make the same deductions about Nagato's abilities as Itachi did based on his performance against Obito. Nagato is going to get pressured much faster than he did in the original fight, leading to him getting sealed much earlier in my opinion. Even if he did bring out Chibaku Tensei, Minato would actually just be able to teleport Naruto, Bee, and everybody away from the crater. They would basically just wait for the sphere to take form and continue their assault on Nagato, as there is a limit, at least with Nagato, to creating like the giant Chibaku Tensei balls, which will inevitably lead to Nagato getting sealed, whether that be Minato's basic sealing or if it comes to it, Reaper Dead seal as an Edo Tensei. Minato's probably one of the worst matchups in the sense that he doesn't require any flashy ninjutsu. Like, even if you say Nagato absorbs the Rasengan, right? Minato doesn't even need to rely on that because he could simply like taijutsu around Nagato. And when I say taijutsu, I mean in the sense that like he's just gonna be slashing him with his kunai. He's simply gonna maneuver around him and slash through him just like he did with the Eight Tails tail. And people might say, like, you might make the argument, right? Minato might not be able to like actually damage Nagato, but if Minato was prepared to like pierce through the version 2 cloak from a younger A, there really shouldn't be any reason he can't damage Nagato. Now, while this might be a younger A, the lightning cloak he has still has to be prepared to like take down the Eight Tails, whether it's at that point or approaching it. So Minato's kind of hitting him with that level of power, and the Raikage's cloak is just ridiculous. Even Sasuke requires Chidori and Amaterasu just to breach through it, and A's impressed, whereas Minato, he's just running around with the kunai. So Minato's gonna clear this round as well. I don't see too much changing. I think the fight actually ends earlier, as there's no additional exposition. Minato's gonna be pressuring Nagato a lot harder and not giving him a lot of opportunity to recover. I also didn't even bring up how Minato can instantly enter Sage mode and start using Sage Chakra on Nagato. And if Nagato actually does begin to absorb that Sage mode chakra, right? Like, let's say I give you that Nagato can like react to like a Sage mode boosted Minato, whose stats have whatever increase you want to say. For the sake of discussion, I'll say 10 times just based off Jiraiya and the statements made about him in Sage mode, in which case he could actually force Nagato to almost transform into a frog just by overwhelming him with Senjutsu. Even if Nagato did grab him, he should also be able to replicate the feat Naruto did. Even if he can't maintain it, the fact that he's standing still will just allow him to gather nature energy. So it's not even as if he doesn't have options at this point. Like, he can actually overwhelm Nagato if Nagato does get him in some type of hold. So that's just another like layer of discussion. The additional eyes aren't going to help Nagato, as Minato is going to be teleporting around. There just isn't going to be too much for Nagato to do at this point. And this is not discussing how like KCM, Naruto, and B are going to be fighting alongside him and just adding complete pressure to Nagato. For round 3, we have Itachi versus Raikage A as a Jonin and a younger Killer Bee. I guess you could say Jonin Killer Bee, with the goal being to either defeat or straight up like stall out the group for the retreat signal to come about. In which case, Itachi's most certainly going to start off with a Genjutsu variant of some kind. I doubt Tsukuyomi, just based off the fact that he doesn't really lead with that in a lot of canon fights. In which case, you could make a case that Raikage A might actually just be able to brush it off, as Sasuke's MS Genjutsu was worthless to him, and he actually flexes it off. Maybe you could like kind of establish a bit of like a power scale in terms of Genjutsu, considering Madara's EMS basic Sharingan Genjutsu was actually able to put Raikage A like under submission. So Itachi being somewhat of a middle ground here between like Sasuke, who he's a superior to, and Madara, who he's inferior to. There's a bit of wiggle room to talk about that. So it's a possibility. It kind of depends on like your interpretation on that. Regardless though, there's absolutely no way A can actually just straight up blitz Itachi, like just run at him and take him out. Just due to how Sasuke was able to throw up his Susanoo very quickly in the 5 Kage Summit relative to A's actual attacks. Like, he's getting it up before A can actually finish him. This even extends to his Mangekyo techniques, like his flame control, which while he can't perceive A, his technique is thrown up before A is actually able to land a hit on him. So Itachi should have no issues throwing up his Susanoo defense in time, which is extended further into his fight with Kabuto. If you want to look at that fight, how he's throwing up his Susanoo defense in reactions to inorganic animation and a bunch of other of Kabuto's attacks. And if Itachi does don the Susanoo, the fight kind of ends, because there's no real way to argue that A is going to be able to take him down if he's struggling with a much inferior version of a Susanoo from an inferior Uchiha. So it's that, or Itachi realizes A is going to be too much trouble, places him in Tsukuyomi, knocks A out the way, B saves him, in which case he could also easily just hit B with a Tsukuyomi as well. We notice in part 1, he is able to use 2 Mangekyo techniques in one day. And that's considered like a somewhat of a self-imposed limit. He's like, I had to use both these techniques in one day. I got a rest. So it is actually possible that if he could attempt to Tsukiyomi both members, in which case it doesn't matter if Killer Bee is cool with the 8 tails, since the whole point of Tsukiyomi is that it happens so instantly that the 8 tails would have no time to break Bee out of it. Especially considering when Itachi places Bee under normal genjutsu, it still takes a moment for the 8 tails to knock him out of it. Like, Itachi's still moving. So Itachi just really has answers for both A and B at this point. And if he turns it into like a 1v2, it's perfectly fine. Like, he has no issue struggling with that. Even if he starts incorporating some of his looser jutsu, he starts bringing out clones, he's really going to have no issues. So he should be able to repel A and B very quickly. He really only has to take down one of them too for the group to retreat. Last up, we have Edo Minato with Sasuke versus Sage Mode Kabuto. Now, for this fight, Minato will be attempting to detain Kabuto or like knocking him out with Sasuke as support. Now, I will say too, I'm not giving Edo Minato KCM for the obvious reason of it just being too strong for every character in this list. Like, he's on the same level as like a KCM2 Sage Mode Naruto's avatar. So it's like, no. These levels are way too beyond everybody else. So for the sake of discussion, I'm not going to be giving Minato that as well. So if you want to look at it a different way, I'm essentially like nerfing Minato and like buffing Itachi for the sake of the video to make it more comparable. The problem with this fight is that Kabuto's kind of an animal, and I mean he's essentially intangible due to Suigetsu's hydrification, so, you know, his snakes can liquefy into like water, while Kabuto collects nature energy while separated, like in snake form. Like, he's separated all around the battlefield. He emerges in Sage Mode with Karin's regen. By the way, people won't talk about that. That's all in base. The Suigetsu's hydrification, Karin's regeneration. He just stacks that with Sage Mode and on top of like the Sound 4 and Orochimaru's abilities. So there's no real way Minato or Sasuke is preventing Kabuto from achieving Sage Mode, leading to the next part of the discussion. So let's say the fight starts off and Kabuto throws out like the white extreme attack. Minato will more than likely off the rip of the fight spread his kunai throughout the cave at the start of it, making it so even if Kabuto uses the white extreme attack, he'll still be able to teleport. The reason I say this is due to how he can teleport away from Obito's convoy, which once initiated is treated as the end of a fight in every fight he's been in. This, along with the fact that Itachi can still actually activate the Susanoo, means that Minato should be able to activate Flying Raijin. So the initial like first attack, I don't think is taking out the group, especially since Minato can't teleport Sasuke or place a mark on Sasuke as well. The problem is though, is that Minato really has no way to damage Kabuto with his physical strikes. Kabuto's hydrification or like liquidation, however you want to say it, will make it impossible to damage him, meaning Minato will have to rely on Rasengan variants to damage Kabuto. And the problem with Minato in this matchup as well is that mutual strikes aren't beneficial, as Kabuto has regen comparable to Karin. So it's not as if Minato's Rasengan hits Kabuto, it'll be taking him down, as even Obito as like a 14-year-old wasn't fully killed by it. You could definitely make a strong case for Minato using Sage Mode in this bout, especially since Kabuto does, which will give him an added boost in sensory capabilities, but we don't really have like any definitive like AP showings for like how strong Minato's attacks are in Sage Mode, along with the fact that if it doesn't work, he just loses the form immediately. Considering the fact that Kabuto and his techniques were like continuously like he basically has like Orochimaru's like body replacement jutsu like coming out the snakes. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar, and he's constantly getting sliced up by the Susanoo swords. I just can't see Minato just taking him down in this fight. A big reason this fight is so impossible for Minato is also that he lacks the ability to defend Sasuke like Itachi does, in the sense that he's not able to erect a giant skeletal hand to grab him and shield him from attacks. Moves like inorganic animation make it so all positions in the cave are impossible to teleport to unless Minato teleports outside the cave by touching Sasuke and taking him out, which is like extra prep if you want to say like Minato went to go stop Kabuto. I think it's fair, but at the same time, if Itachi's not able to shield himself and Sasuke, it's almost hard to see that like Minato would be able to grab Sasuke and teleport him out, especially like if they're a decent distance away before like Minato can move. Sasuke would perform about the same in the fight. The problem with Sasuke in this fight is that he doesn't really have any way to like attack Kabuto, as all his moves are extremely lethal, like Enton and Inferno style. It's all like one-shot technique, so he can't shoot those out. So he's more so just playing defense and waiting for Itachi, because Itachi took the lead in that fight. So if Minato were to take the same position in this fight, he's not going to be able to like move in the same way. He doesn't have this definitive cutout plan. A big problem for Minato and Sasuke too is that they don't complement each other nearly as much in this fight. An example being to use demonic flute, and how instead of inflicting self-harm, which is a way to break out of it via Shikamaru like showing us, Itachi and Sasuke are able to expedite the time it took to free themselves by looking into each other's eyes, an idea Itachi came up with. So it's just little points in the fight that make it hard for Minato to actually take down Kabuto. And if Itachi's able to consistently wreck like the Susanoo defense throughout the fight and he's still getting tagged at points, Minato can also get tagged. If Itachi's also shown interacting with these levels of speeds very compared to Minato, unable to stop Kabuto's attacks and saves himself, then Minato more than likely will not be able to either. Someone might bring up Minato reacting to Madara's orbs. Madara's orbs are not that fast. I feel like this is a dead horse, but somebody's gonna bring it up. Kakashi can throw a kunai as fast as the orbs. 7th gate guy can intercept the orbs. Obito can react to and block the orbs after losing the Jubi. It's just not that crazy of a feat that makes Minato get by and just have a free pass in these conversations. I'm not saying Minato doesn't have crazy reaction time, but I think people will like overblow it to the point where like he's like 10 tails level, which I do not think is the case. So on top of Kabuto's like unbelievable like sensory capabilities, the ability to regen from like quite literally anything Minato can throw, the ability to liquefy through physical strikes unless he initiates like chakra blades in his arms to clash physically, Minato's not going to be able to stop what Kabuto has coming. He'll be able to, you know, dodge around a lot of lower level techniques like the Sound 4 techniques and whatnot. But the problem is once Kabuto starts to notice where the Flying Raijin are throughout the cave, Minato will run out of options. Even if he marks Kabuto, these options only work once, and it's just he just doesn't have what it takes to put Kabuto down permanently. He doesn't have like this hack solution to the problem. No, he has to actually take Kabuto down by force, which base Minato, even arguably in Sage mode, he just can't do, especially while defending Sasuke in an enclosed area that only benefits Kabuto. So Minato is more than likely going to have a tag placed in his head, leading to the scenario being an L. Minato does not clear. So with all this, both characters actually shared the same score of 2-1, 2 wins, 1 L, which I think is pretty fair. I think honestly, these characters are more so just suited to who they fought, which is perfectly fine, as that's a series of Naruto. It's not just Dragon Ball Z where like a character is greater than everybody else. It can be at times. I'm not saying it isn't. Actually, it is a lot of the time. But you get what I'm saying. There's like certain matchups where like certain characters are just more equipped to handle it. So that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. A little food for thought. Let me know what you guys thought down below. What your you know opinions are and all that. I would have thrown like Itachi into like the War Arc fights, but those are group battles, so it's just not like it's a little harder to talk about. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you did. Like and subscribe if you're new here. Let me know if you guys want to see Itachi and Obito swapped fights. I was considering doing that instead of this video, but for whatever reason I didn't. I don't know if you guys would be even interested in that, but let me know if you are. Let me know if you want to see that. So I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.